we have with us a very special guest, my old friend, Mr. Sachin Jain, who's newly taken over as the role of CEO, India World Gold Council. Welcome, Mr. Sachin.
Thank you so much, Sumesh.
Uh,
It's always a pleasure to be on your platform and to see you, my old friend.
nice to see your interview in your new role as the head of the World Gold Council, a very eminent position for India, a big market for you. So to start with, we kind of received the figures for the first quarter, the demand figures of the Q1 from Jan 2024 to March 2024, and it looks quite robust. The growth in India is 8% higher, in spite of the gold rates from the Jan had started going up. So one side we see the gold prices going up, and other side we see demand also going up. Very interesting trends. Could you please elaborate on this?
Sure, Sumesh. Thank you again, and it's a pleasure for me to have this interaction. And these numbers were so interesting when you come from the diamond business, which are very different set of numbers. And when you look at the gold numbers, they're very different in our country. So for me, it was a
The
lot
scale
of
is
learning.
very big. Scale is
Scale
huge.
is extremely different, and I really when I looked at the numbers, I really went back to check every single number and understand every single number as to be sure of what I'm gonna sort of be talking to you on. So,
Right.
so I'll give you a perspective, Sumesh, of what's happened in the global world in a
Hmm.
very quick manner, and then connect it to what's happening in our country and
Right.
how it's behaving slightly differently. So, as you've seen the quarter one results that we've seen, so globally the demand of gold has gone up about 3%, translating to about 1,238 tons of consumption. Now, there have been few pillars of this sort of growth and stability that we've seen, even with this high prices of gold, even in quarter one. So, firstly, we've seen an increased interest and consumption on investment demand of gold, which is the bars and coins. That has gone up globally. Secondly, we've seen the central bank buying, which has been a very important pillar of this growth. So just in quarter one, over 290 tons of gold has been consumed by central banks, which has historically never happened. And this overall consumption, the second that we saw similar was in 2016 when the quarter
This is
was strong.
globally 290 tons in the
I'm talking about
Q1.
global right now.
Right.
Yeah, first I'll talk globally, then I'll jump to
Global.
India. So right now,
Right.
global figure. Uh, Even with this heightened price of gold in quarter one, the consumption of jewelry only went down by 2%. And I'll go in detail as to what happened in India in just a little bit. And lastly, what we saw, Sumesh, is that the technology requirement of gold has really gotten amplified because of the new AI-based microchips, which need gold. And we foresee that this consumption of technology is here to stay. It's not going anywhere because the processing speed required in these microchips is very fast, and only gold can deliver those requirements of speed. And AI, is becoming a part of our lives. So this is here to stay. Now, you mentioned about a trend, and that trend is very interesting that we see in the Western world and the Eastern world globally. In the Western world, whenever the prices have gone up, whenever there is a rally, the market tends to invest in gold. In the Eastern world, whenever the prices go a little down or there's a up, up and down, that's when the Eastern world, which is China, India, tends to respond. However, this quarter, January to March, has been the first quarter where we've seen this complete change in the way the Western and Eastern markets are responding.
Hmm.
This year, Western markets have encashed. As the prices were going up, the ETFs got encashed and they booked profits. So it was really encashing happened there. Whereas in the Eastern markets, the firm belief on gold has gone up steadily, and hence more and more investment has come into the gold category. So that's happened in the global markets. Now let's jump to India, which is what I think is very exciting right now. So we've, as you mentioned, that the consumption has gone up about 6%, but totaling to about 136 tons of gold consumed in the first quarter. Central bank has been strong. So RBI for the entire 2023 bought 16 tons of gold. Just in quarter one, January, February, March, they have exceeded 19 tons already. And with our director of, as in governor of RBI, he's come out in the public saying that their continued assertion in gold and continued buying that we'll see through the year. So it is just the start, which is already just quarter one is higher than the entire year 2023 by central banks.
So do you see a strategic shift in RBI that they feel gold as a very safe and appreciating
Yes, yes, yes.
reserves.
I think
Reserve.
very clearly it's a reflection of the geopolitical environment. It's a
Okay.
reflection of India's confidence and India's dominance in the world, and the fact that we still have a long way to go. Like our reserves put together with RBI declared and by the IMF is about 850 tons. Compare that to the US, which is 8,000 tons. So there is still a long way to go, but we have made a very steady progress as we going forward. So that has been the
Today we are
second.
sitting on 600, $650 billion of forex reserves. So
That's
even
right.
if
That's right.
10% of that they convert to gold, is huge, right?
100%. So we see definitely this is a projected growth happening. The third leg that we saw, Sumesh, was in the investment bar and coin area, where while the market grew up in the first quarter by 19%, the value went up by 32.5%. Just imagine that huge magnanimous increase that we witnessed in the bars and coins. And lastly, the most important area in our world is the jewelry business, where also with the increased price, we saw about 6 to 7% increase in the consumption of gold jewelry. Now, this really propelled in the February time when the prices went down, and March was as the prices went up was got very slow. So that has been the broad structure of what India we saw. But what I was talking to you before is what we witnessed in the last 10 days in our market is just something phenomenal. We saw that prices of gold were high beginning of April. It kept going high, but almost like end of April till beginning of May, they subdued a little bit. So there were slightly more realistic levels of pricing. And the moment they hit slightly those levels, we saw consumers respond magically. We saw consumers coming in and making the bookings almost 10 days before Akshaya Tritiya for their purchases. In all our conversations, and you and I were part of these conversations in the previous, in Bangalore when we were together as well, the
Right.
conversations were that should we focus more on small ticket items because the consumers appetite will be in gold, but maybe the average value will go down and so on and so forth. What we realized, Sumesh, was that the high value items, the wedding jewelry, all of these got booked. All of the big pieces got preponed with perhaps the anticipation that the price of gold might go even higher in the coming months. That there was a lot of booking that we saw happen across the country, south, but of course always leading this whole journey in the Akshaya Tritiya time. But the confidence on which we saw gold getting purchased at the current levels is almost confirming by the consumers that that's an acceptable level. And if you look at the broad situation economically of India, the incomes are strong. We have a stable government. Hopefully, we see what the results of the current election are. We have a very, as an industry, we don't like that word at times, but a very effective regulator, which I think is good because it brings the strong pillars of the country forward. The consumer confidence on gold. I mean, the great work that the industry has done around UHID and almost every jewelry piece in the country having by law is required to declare the purity. These were seeds sown by the industry a few years ago. Right now is when we're seeing fruits out of those seeds. And I think what we're doing is really creating an environment and infrastructure where a consumer walks into the stores and doesn't feel any sort of heavy head to saying I'm almost investing in pureness, investing in the future. And these kind of things has propelled. There's also one particular statistics I like to share is that historically it's been seen that with every 1% increase in income, there's 1% increase in gold in a country like India. Now, if you look at the per capita income of India, which is still at a very humble level, and what the projection of Viksit Bharat 2047 is, if you read that number, it's a complete transformation of a developing country to a developed country, and the per capita income is slated to almost triple. As in how much money we will have per person in our hands is supposed to triple. Now, will that have an impact on gold? 100% yes. To what level is still to be seen. But what gold has delivered, and you said the last 5 weeks, we saw abnormal increases up and down, right? But even if you exclude the last 5 weeks, we've seen a consistent return on investment when we've seen on gold. And very lastly, I want to put forth one thing is the ETFs and the financial assets on gold. Now that is an area we saw consistent growth over the last few years. But again, in Q1, we see substantial growth happening in ETFs. And because younger consumers are getting more digital, their interest on gold is very strong. But now they can consume and buy gold digitally was an area that we saw very interestingly increase in India.
Right. Wonderful. I think, Sachin, you have covered a lot of points, the whole spectrum of the gold consumption story in India. We will cover to that. You've covered hallmarking, ETFs, the government, the consumer demand because of India getting more prosperous. But let's first talk about the Akshaya Tritiya, the most happening festival for gold. We just concluded it 2 days back. And I believe you were traveling to parts of India to have a first-hand knowledge and first-hand feel of the Akshaya Tritiya. Can you share with us what are the data, what are the kind of feedback you are receiving on Akshaya Tritiya jewelry gold sales?
Sure. So, Sumesh, the first sign actually, whenever I've gone to the jewelry stores through my career, I've always felt that I'm going to my own store. So, I've operated in these stores as my own. So, I go there, I go behind the counters, and I've been always met by very kind partners and people who become friends over the years who don't doubt my reason of being there. So, I've always had complete access. Now, in the last 10 days, I covered various markets. Of course, Bombay City, we did Pune, we did eastern markets, we done extensively southern markets. Everywhere I went there,
But where were
everybody
you on Akshaya Tritiya day?
on Chennai. Chennai, of course,
In
Chennai is
Chennai,
great.
okay.
In Chennai, Chennai
The
is
hub of gold.
most important center. And over the years, I've been in Chennai on Akshaya Tritiya, but this time for multiple days I was there, and it was a great, very very heartening to see what I saw. So 10 days back onwards, 10 days back when I started visiting the stores, I saw my partners being very busy. That is a great sign. People didn't have time, which is exactly another sign. I was there to, of course, also do small trainings and things around what we should talk about on gold, some specifics and stuff. But I saw a very interested consumer coming in and booking. Right as we got close to the 10th of May, the excitement was soaring, and we, of course, we were investing crazy amounts of money on advertising and everything. Responses were happening, but more and more the conversations on the 1st of May when I met the retailers was, we had a very slow quarter. It's a tough time to
Gold
moving to
prices are
saying it seems
all-time high.
to saying we're going to be having the best Akshaya Tritiya. And I can tell you, Sumesh, by the middle of the day, almost about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, when the sun was soaring high and the temperature, I mean, the real temperature in India was very high and everybody was worried. We at that time, as an industry, were clear that we will surpass the number of 2023 Akshaya Tritiya. That's how strong we saw this time as a momentum. And it was just humbling to see consumers coming into the stores. And particularly, I was there in the South Indian stores where, of course, walk-ins were very high. And across country, we've got the same report of very high walk-ins. And of course, there'll be certain pockets which got dampened because of the polling happening on the 11th. So,
Right.
and some of the very high-profile politicians were
Tamil Nadu
visiting.
and the Telangana and Andhra, I believe, was
Telangana
slow
was certainly
because
one
of
of
the
them. Andhra
polling.
was one of them. Exactly, spot on, Sumesh. These are two areas that we've heard that the walk-ins were restricted and hence it impacted the business. But I'm certain that over the next couple of days, which is today and yesterday, some coverage would have happened or some cover-up would have happened there.
Any
So, but
data you're able
overall,
to any data you're able to collate for this Akshaya Tritiya to
so
last
the
Akshaya Tritiya, the
data,
growth
yes,
numbers?
right now I have anecdotal data in terms of different retailers talking about between 10% to 20% of growth over last year. A lot of people saying at least similar numbers as last year, but I have not come across anybody who's saying that we've dropped than last year. However, we will have a consolidated number over the next 1 or 2 weeks, and hopefully we will form an industry view as to how much exactly we've grown. But
In fact,
clearly,
yeah,
this was
yeah,
a
yeah.
very action oriented Akshaya Tritiya.
True,
We
true,
saw a
true.
lot of action. And at that new price, right, which we were not already, it broke our norms that if you do business transparently and if you represent in a category that holds value, holds strength, then results are here to stay.
Right. So we at Art of Jewelry also track Akshaya Tritiya every year. It's a big festival in South, and we are very closely attached with all the industry players. So what we have seen is that one of the biggest retailer in India, Malabar Gold, has put up an official press note that their 39% sales up. But of course, it is not a store-to-store sales because they must have added a lot of new stores in this coming year. But in spite of that, that still must be a 10, 15%, 20% store-to-store stores from the last year, which is very heartening to see in spite of the high gold prices.
Absolutely. I mean, and 39%, I mean, for such a credible organization like
Such
Malabar,
a big organization,
such a big
which has
organization, but also
already had a huge base in last year, I'm sure.
right. But also such credibility that they bring on the table to see that that magnanimous growth is what they've put forth is very inspiring for all of us as an industry to see what we should accomplish in the coming year.
Right. Now, a little bit coming to about your career, Sachin. You've been with the DBS, you're the face of Forever Mark in India, for the Diamond, the spokesperson, the strategy leader, I think for 10 to 12 years. But I think for the benefit of our viewers and industry, just take us through your career. I think you have been in a luxury market for throughout, and just take us through your career.
So Sumesh, thanks for that question, and it's very interesting that I mean here I would say my series of my things that have happened in my career have been purely out of you know coincidence, but absolute pure luck that I got to meet the people I met. So I've had, as I call, 5 professional chapters in my life. Right, I started my career with Benetton, which was my first job, which I did in apparel, and the brand is an Italian brand. My second, large part of my career was with a company called the Swatch Group, which has brands like Tissot, Rado, Longines, Omega, Breguet, all of these
That
brands.
was your first job?
That was my second job.
Second.
So,
first was?
Was Benetton, United Colors of Benetton.
United Colors of Benetton. Okay, right.
Yes. And the second was Swatch Group, where I led the brand Tissot across India. And then I moved on to join a company called Yadro. It's also called double LEDRO, Ladro. They do porcelain figurines and statues, very high end. And we
something
have
like Swarovski does something
Swarovski
like
does crystal, and they do porcelain. So different
their
form of
division.
art, but same usage of homes.
Right.
And I worked over there, and that company gave me a very different exposure of doing luxury and how high-end consumers behave, because mostly our own stores and stuff. And then I joined De Beers in 2010, so almost 13 and a half years back, when we were planning to launch Forever Mark. And in every other industry, when you work, Sumesh, and you enter our magnanimous industry, there are a few things that happen, right? One, when you join the industry, you realize how large our industry is, right? Secondly, our industry is a connected industry. Everybody knows everybody. It's the only industry where, as competitors, we call each other for real advice, and we always get the right advice. I mean, it does not happen in any other industry. I can vouch for that. This is the uniqueness of our industry, and it's a community that moves forward. I mean, a lot of things in our industry, and we could have different point of views. I mean, that's absolutely fine. But as an industry, we are one. So
I agree with you, because I see, although they're competing, but they're attending each other's social wedding functions.
Oh yes.
And together industry functions, they sit together. They're very social.
It's very well networked. It's almost one voice, and I think that's very unique. It's a unique reason why we have grown so much, and why I'm confident that we'll grow even more. There's also an urge to meet the new age consumer demand, and hence, if you look at how organizations were run in the past to how they run now, the concept of professionals in the business, the concept of moving family structures in businesses, all of that has been quite great. And for me, as a part of Forever Mark, the role was, one, to develop Forever Mark, but also via Forever Mark, develop the diamond business in the country. And hence our focus was always not on saying that how much top line and bottom line we make in just Forever Mark, but how do we impact the industry for the directions of travel of diamonds in the right manner. And today, in a way, I feel great because the work we were able to do in retail. So first was, where the consumer is coming to buy diamonds needs to be amplified. Branding needs to become very important. Our consumer researchers give a lot of confidence and direction for the entire industry to move, and sheerly saying where the industry can perhaps land. So all of this was, again a great experience for me, and I was able to work very closely with industry leaders and develop markets and develop India as a nation, Bharat as a nation. So that was very heartening. So I did that for, we launched Forever Mark in 2011, and I was completely involved in this in about 2018-19. And then I was offered, and I was running a global role, which is called the Origin, which is a new concept to give stores transparency to all our diamonds. So, my journey in De Beers has been extremely enriching, and I'm only super grateful to every partner, to friends like you that I made in the journey, who impacted me in a positive manner, and I was able to contribute meaningfully to the industry. Now, leaving De Beers is not easy, I can tell you that. And that there comes a point when you get to a crossroad where you have to decide which way to go. Because as a professional, you also want to enhance or widen your own learning. And I did look out, and again, I'm It's by God's kindness and God's grace that this position has come to me, and I'm really excited about it. One, because it's again part of the industry, but it's part of the industry that I don't know much about. I didn't know much about, and the idea is to learn a lot, and how we really can make a meaningful representation of the gold business in the years to come. I think that's perhaps what is important for me, and the intent for me and the team at Gold Council will be to pick up few sort of pillars which will be, some things which will be immediate that we'll start seeing over the next 6 months, 8 months. Some things we have to identify which are midterm to long term, right? And work and move the industry where our industry is referred to as a gold industry with gold standards. And in the way I see it is that there was a reason, or the journey of gold was, there was one journey of gold which was till 2022, and I think 23, 24 onwards, gold will be the new gold. And I really think the new gold will mean in terms of confidence, in terms of how we need to stand behind, in terms of transparency, and really be magnets of the other stakeholders, including consumers, including the governments, banks, that they look at our industry with only one word, and that is wow, and that is confidence. So that will be the role that we think. So for me, it's a great step. At times, I think it's same industry, but it's a very different industry, and the objectives will be different. But I think what I've been really graced by God and the Almighty is, still being part of something precious, something rare, something that holds value, something that is meaningful in lives, and something that's important to our social fabric as India.
Right. So, Sachin, I've seen you. One thing, you're very consistent. I've known you're very humble. You very humbly put up your whole career and this new big opportunity. Great. And how I see the similarity between what DBS diamonds you're dealing with and today the gold. First of all, both are a very precious commodity. Both are part of jewelry industry, and not many readers, not very viewers and industry people know that the owner of the biggest gold mines and diamond mines are the same. The Anglo Gold owns gold mines as well as diamond mines. So, but that is where the similarity ends. On the ground, the gold market is very different. It is such a hugely penetrated. Diamond, you have to make a hard sell. I think gold, all you have to do is convince the government to reduce some customs duty, and everybody needs more gold coming into their shops and their homes, and need more programs in terms of confidence. As you mentioned, we'll come to that.
I think
but you want to say something?
I would only say that what De Beers is taught and the world of diamonds is taught is that you cannot keep the eyes off the consumer. If you have a pulse on the consumer, that's the only way you will succeed in the future. And I think while there's been a journey of gold until now, and why I say gold will be the new gold is because if we have to succeed in the next decade and next 2 decades and next 3 decades, we will have to unlearn and learn. We will have to do things in the new way. The reality is, Sumesh, that the 31st of December 2024, which is 6 months from now, 7 months from now, 75% of our country will be millennial or younger. And we cannot discount that fact. The reality is that 75% on that ratio of our consumers will become younger. And we will have to offer them gold and our product and a solution, keeping them in mind. So, we have to get ready. Because if we think that what we've done until now is all good and life is great, yes, it is. But things will push in the wrong direction if we don't accelerate or accept the change with open arms.
Right. So what we are seeing is this trend of responsible gold sourcing. We have again a big retailer, Malabar Gold, putting up that they have tied up with the suppliers, with the mines, with the bullion dealers, whom they exactly know where the gold is coming from. So they are sure what they are selling to. And also there is something called recycling gold, talking about sustainability part of it. So this lot of new initiatives, and sustainability is now Western countries, it is a buzzword. I think in India, it is a matter of time, it will catch up. So how do your views on this new initiatives of responsible gold and sustainability gold?
I think, Smash, it's purely a reflection of keeping an eye on where the consumer is going. Like today, if you go and buy a Starbucks coffee, you have an option. I mean, at least it started in Europe, where for a $5 coffee, you scan a QR code and it tells you where the beans have come from. Yeah. Now, if that is happening for a product that is 400 rupees, then the same consumer has to and will ask when they'll buy a few lakhs of product, saying, where the hell has this come from? And we better have the answer. Now, is it something that's going to impact us in the short run? Perhaps not, but it's certainly a trend coming in. And I think with leaders, certain leaders will take the first steps to make these supply lines more transparent, more, and technology today will offer blockchain elements around where you can track all of these. So I see these trends coming in. However, I think for India, if you ask me, what is the more important need? Whereas transparency to a level of every gram gold where it comes from should be clear, and I'm sure we will be working on it. And as World Gold Council, we've initiated something called Gold 247, which is a broad database that we're working with LBMA, and a lot of things are coming in. That's something that we will be announcing and working with industry as it come along. But the more important thing is the immediate, and the immediate thing is that when you talk to a regulator, when you talk to a bank, or even when you talk to consumers at large, there's a bit of question mark when they look at our industry, right? And lot of is changing. 95% of the work that's happening in our industry is fabulous, right? But the 5%, which perhaps was a slightly bigger percentage before, still gives outsiders an impression that things might not be perfect in our business, right? And what is the immediate need for us as an industry is to work on improvising our image, improvising the standards, putting a hand on our heart and saying everything happening in my organization or to my consumer is correct. I think those are the things that we have to do. And on that area, what is going to be me and World Gold Council's most important objective for 24-25 is the establishment of the first step of the self-regulatory organization. Every industry has a self-regulatory organization, which is formed by the industry, represented by the industry, rules and regulations are laid out by the industry. But what it does is that it gives the first filter to every member to have an audit on, a code of conduct that they say I stand behind. So I don't have child labor. I offer fair practices to the consumer. I offer exchange services to the consumer. Every product is, has a unique HID. I mean, stuff like that. So what we've done is, Sumesh, the intent is we want to accelerate the SRO. We're calling it the IAGs, which is the India Gold Institution for Excellence and Standards. It'll be an industry body. We are, of course, putting the seed fund. We're getting the whole thing together. We formed the first advisory board. The advisory board consists of the ex-chairman of SEBI. It consists of the ex-chairman of Niti Aayog. So people like this who build our country, right? They're on the advisory board. And we're forming the board that will have a representation from the bullion side, the representation from the exporter side, representation from all jewelry retailing bodies. And hence, really recognizing companies which say, okay, these are the code of conduct laid out by the industry. I adhere to them, and hence I open an audit to them. And then our role will be to celebrate them, to really, celebrate and bring to the consumer that these are the organizations or brand that sign up for this mark. It's like a whole mark.
But I have two questions. One is that when you will roll this out. Number two, will this be like a big branch, big boys club? Let's say a small jeweler sitting somewhere in Mysore or sitting somewhere in, let us say, Assam. Will he also be having an opportunity to participate in this program?
So, Sumesh, it's a fantastic question you've asked me, right? I mean, I can't thank you more to ask this question. And for the first one is easy. So intent is to launch this at the IAJS in August.
IAJS 2024 August.
2024 will be on in a pilot format where we'll have the board set up, we'll have the CEO in place, we will have the marketing ready, and we will have at least a representation of 20-30 leading companies on the platform who will be open to an audit, and we'll run it with them. By the 1st of January, and I'm saying around January, we'll try 1st of January, this will be open to the industry, which means that a retailer in Ghaziabad or in Meerut or in Visakhapatnam or in Tiruvallur or wherever else, gets the same level of recognition and is willing to put his hand on the heart and saying, I'm a part of an industry that takes pride of being in the gold business. So that's the intent.
And
so
you give them the logo of that.
Everything is getting worked upon. And over the next few weeks, I will be, of course, reaching out to you, Sumesh, because through your platform, where you've been almost instrumental in changing the face of the industry and getting the word to the end retailer, I will be working very closely with you
We are
to,
just an interface. Whatever comes, we put it up.
yes, but more importantly, I think the
Yeah.
thing is that we all have to work together, because
Right.
my role is to bring out the intention of what
Yeah.
World Council. Why are we doing this? Is
Right.
because we see the gold accelerating in a transparent manner as an industry, not for the next 1 year, but
Yeah.
for the
As
next
I
20 years, 50 years.
keep telling the industry friends that HUID is a very big idea. We as industry have to kind of have the opportunity to leverage it, to kind of communicate it powerfully. Because nowhere in the world like it's like an iPhone. You go to a thing, you check the number on your own app, and you see everything clearly. Nowhere in the world you have this. Similarly, this initiative of a responsible jeweler, and this is a
Self-regulatory
great
organization, the
huh,
first SRO, and every
yeah,
industry has it. Like
SRO. SRO,
newspaper
it's
industry has
giving
it,
it's
hospitals
giving
have
you, it's
it.
like a like what we got ISO 20 years back. It is something like that. You are getting it, today, and you are getting it from your industry people for your industry, and it is not a commercial body. So I think it's a great idea, and we fully support it. Industry will fully support it. Any other key one, two, three objectives, Sachin, would you like to name you
Yes,
have
so
set
Sumesh,
for yourself for this year?
yes, so Sumesh, one is of course the running establishment and running of SRO, where it's not a concept, it's a reality. So I think we'll accelerate and make it happen. Number one. Number two is that looking an eye on the future consumer, we would like to bring in certain themes of jewelry and areas of retail which can be common for industry players to adapt. I mean, my intent would not be that we want to put money in putting certain designs and saying just sell this A design. The idea would be to bring in certain concepts that can work with, the top jeweler, the high-end jeweler, the middle jeweler, the jeweler on the street. But the key would be that focus on certain ideations in which we think the future consumer will come to, and we'll bring them threads, we'll bring the industry together, saying that this is where the direction of future is. We will put the money, and you can do your interpretation, so that the magnifier implied is not 2 plus 2 is 4, but 2 plus 2 should be 8, and hence we all can get benefited. That'll be the second industry area. Thirdly, there's a lot of work we are going to do on the financial side of ETFs and other things. But I instinctively feel that there is a way of bringing, like currently, like if you take a step back right now, there's a jewelry industry and there's a financial industry. And I think there is a merit to bring them together, where our jewelers could be, somehow involved in, for example, in cashing of ETFs or things. It's very conceptual. We'll have to see the regulatory framework. I'm working on that. But my role will be that when we as a jeweler, we've been standing behind gold for 100 years, and with so much transparency, we take the advantage even in the financial world. So let's see how we bring this whole two worlds together.
Right. And just taking it forward, what we have seen is the WGC's role in India. Of course, we are talking. Say, if I reflect my association with WGC for last 20 years, from last 8 to 10 years, WGC has moved more towards policy and more of a B2B strategic visibility rather than a B2C. We don't see WGC logo in the ads from last 5 to 8 years. It used to be there, if you remember. So, is there any shift or any rethinking on that? The WGC getting more involved with the retail level, with the programs for the consumers, or
Lots of things, Sumesh. Lots of things are underway, and
okay,
we and the team are working on a lot of things. Hopefully, in the next week or few weeks, we one by one we'll get more and more clearer. So the first one, as I said, was a self-regulatory organization, which is for the industry, which will have a logo, which will
right,
be pushing with the consumer to get them more confident on the gold. So that's clear. So it's one step towards bringing out large investments for the industry. Number one. Number two is from a design perspective. Also, there's work happening, but the intent isn't to create one jewelry line, which is again with only 20 retailers or 2% of the retailers, and not impact the 98% better other ones.
right.
Things will, the way we'll work is that our initiative should impact most of the jewelers. There are large investments that will be coming in, but the intent is that it'll have a slightly wider impact on the industry. So those are things we're working on. And as I said, Sumesh, you've known me that I work very closely with you, and you'll keep hearing from me as these things form
Yeah, yeah.
shape. I will pick up your view because also your view is important and how your understanding will be important. And hence you create something which impacts not, like you mentioned a phrase, the big boys club, whether it'll impact only the big boys club. No, it'll impact the industry. And that's something that we'll be working on.
Right. You mentioned about ETFs. I myself don't track that closely, but tell us about if you have some data, size of the gold ETF market in India, and you mentioned that you want to link it and to bring it closer with the jewelry industry. There are some players trying it that the digital gold, at least not the ETF, the digital gold can be encashed at the jewelry store when they are buying the jewelry. They can kind of save it like an RD as a digital gold, but when they want to redeem it, it can be redeemed through a jewelry store. Some kind of broadly this I've heard about it.
Exactly. So that is spot on. I mean, that's the work that is at the conceptual stage at our end, in the sense that I'll give you an idea. So ETF is today there are about 18 ETF providers in India for gold-backed ETFs, which means you can buy as small as 60 rupees worth of gold in the form of ETF. All right. Now
one transaction is 60 rupees. Could be per day or.
Yeah, so about 60 rupees is the smallest you can.
So 0.001 milli.
That's correct, right? And for example, and you can keep buying it and it stores in your Demat account. So it reflects in your Demat account for the value of gold. And every gold ETF in India and globally also has to be backed by physical gold. So the moment you, for example, Sumesh, you go online right now and you buy 100 grams of ETF from any player who's providing ETF, the moment they give to you, you will have to back that same value of gold and volume of gold in the logistics company.
So it's your warehouse or your whatever your stock is.
That's correct, and it's 100% tradable. It can move from your.
What's the total volume India right now has?
So AUM of ETF now is about 44 tons. So
it's big.
It's big. It's 44 tons, and it's slated to grow very significantly as we go. So that's the plan.
Right. So that's great, and I know as a WGC you don't generally comment on gold prices, but my last question will be, what is your outlook for the gold for 2024, at least till December? Broadly, where do you see price from here?
So, Sumesh, as I said that, as you only answered that World Gold Council, we don't comment on the price.
I know, but still I would like to know broader trend.
Yeah, the fundamentals in the current environment is very conducive. I mean, the economy is going strong. We realize very rightly the geopolitical situation. So the current overall dynamics around India are very strong and conducive to gold. And hence, I mean, I wouldn't be skeptical on saying that it should be a little positive outlook. But we'll see as we go forward what it does. Our projections are that if the consumption for the year should be anywhere between 700 to 800 tons, if the price goes crazily high and it's a lot of volatility, then about 700 tons. Even then, it won't go down to 700 tons. And if it's
when you say crazily high means what? What range? 2,500 to 3,000?
Actually, more importantly, I would say there's instability. Then it'll be around 700 tons. And if there's a slightly more stable consistency, whether up or even stable, then India will consume 800 tons with a lot of possibility. So I think the environment overall is very conducive around gold, and we feel very positive about it.
Sachin, how's your, I know it's too early days, interactions with the government, with the finance ministry regarding the custom duty on gold, which is one of the highest in the world. I think now the full-fledged budget will come with the new government in place in somewhere in June and July first week. Any recommendations to government on the custom duty reduction?
Well, I think that's an ongoing conversation, Sumesh, that's been happening. We have met the regulators over the last few weeks with the RBI in particular, and government right now is, of course, in that Achar Sanhita. So we have not been able to meet any government ministerial representatives, which soon will start the interactions. So as we progress on them, I will keep you posted.
All right, fine. Thank you very much for sharing your views on the range of topics, and wishing you all the very best for all your new initiatives which you have mentioned and shared with us. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much, Sumesh. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for inviting me on your platform.